Hey, John Hardison here with you from Studio 113 at East Hall High School in Gainesville, Georgia. Let's take a look today at something we call the square. It's an interactive learning structure that is not square at all. In fact, it's really, really cool. We start by asking all of our students to go to one side of the square. And we ask them to go to this side based on their talents and their skills and maybe even their interest. And so here we would ask the musicians to come over here and collaborate. On my left right here on this side, we would use these dry erase tables to artistically represent what we have just studied. And then up here at the front, we would have our actors plan out how they're going to show us what we've just read. And then over here, we would have our speakers ready to kind of wrap everything up at the end and tell us what we missed, or maybe just kind of clarify some of the key facts. And so one of those four areas right there is where the students will go. And then what we would do next, of course, is go to the literature, which this last week happened to be Tom Walker's short story from Washington Irving, a romantic short story. And so I know our first round one, we read the first 3 paragraphs, or actually maybe first 4 paragraphs of Tom Walker. And then we gave our students 10 minutes, and we put a digital timer up on the board. We gave them 10 minutes to think about how they're going to represent their understanding of what we just read via the skill or the talent in the area that they sat at. And so again, musicians, artists, actors, and then speakers. Now after those 10 minutes, we'll have them come to the stage if it applies, and we're going to ask them to present. So I usually go with the musicians first. It's a great way to kick this off. And then I'll have the artist show what they have drawn on these dry erase tables. And then of course, third, we'll have our actors come in on stage, act out their understanding of what they've just read. And then the best way to finish it off is to have our speakers come to the stage and clarify and just go through and pick out some key phrases, some key sentences, and just kind of summarize for us. Now, like I do so many times here in Studio 113, we like to gamify our learning, make it very, very active. And so if all 4 of these talents, these skill sets right here with the square interactive learning structure, if all 4 teams come up and knock this out and actually do very, very well and show they have mastered the task, then what I'll do is I'll go to this section over here, which has 1 through 10, and I'll ask a student to pick a number, and then of course I'll go to the number and I'll say, you know what, it looks like I'm going to have to do what's behind that number. So for example, there may be something behind there called ABC Conversation from Whose Line Is It Anyway? CD compilation album. There's one back there that sounds kind of crazy, but we've done this for many, many years just as fun and for consequences. The Tyrannosaurus Rex, in which you have to act like a growling, menacing Tyrannosaurus Rex. And in fact, one of those numbers behind there actually has me, if that number is chosen, go to the cafeteria, do the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the cafeteria, walking around, and then at the very, very end I have to do the windmill, a breakdancing windmill, and then exit the cafeteria. However, there is one back here that gives me a free pass, and there's one that actually flips it back on the student. I don't know which number that is, but let's say it was number 1. If the student picked number 1, I would take this off right here, of course, and I'd say, oh, this one actually says students, and so it would flip back on them. But 7, I believe, of those 10 have me doing some kind of payoff because all 4 teams have defeated me. However, if one of these teams or more of these teams do not successfully demonstrate understanding with regards to the skills in the area that they set at, then what they'll have to do is they'll have to draw or pick one of these numbers over here. So for example, let's say the artist did not satisfactorily show understanding. In fact, they're way off. I'll say, what number do you want? They'll pick a number. Let's say it's number 1. And so number 1 here, they would have questions only, in which they do a skit from Whose Line Is It Anyway with questions only. And of course, if they don't perform that correctly, maybe they're doing some type of little acting skit or some type of little payoff. Just a little bit of fun, keeps us moving forward. This one would happen to be a one-word song, and I know you've probably seen the 3-headed Broadway star on Whose Lines It Anyway. So could you imagine maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 kids right here gather around the stage and have to do a song about Tom Walker, one word at a time. And then just one final one I'll check here. Let's see what 10 says. 10, oh, they would have to reenact what we just read in the short story, and they would have to do that via a soap opera form. So that right there is the square, the interactive learning structure. No doubt it is highly, highly interesting. The students just really get into this as they get to show their knowledge in their own creative and talented way. I usually go about 2 to 3 rounds with them picking their first talent. And then after that, to make it really interesting and challenging, I ask them to go to another area, one of the other 3 that maybe they're not so strong in, and then we continue to read. Throughout this interactive learning structure, I just kind of keep my foot on the gas and sometimes back off and sometimes accelerate just to kind of move us forward in the short story or whatever piece of literature we are studying. But if you will, take some time to watch some of these compilations of what these students have presented here recently, and you'll see that the square interactive learning structure is far from square. All right, thanks.